The girl was exceptionally beautiful. She was also incredibly gifted when it came to acting, but her talent and beauty only made everyone around her jealous. Not long afterward, she died under mysterious circumstances. Everyone believed her death was connected to a terrifying local legend, but in reality, every legend existed to hide a shocking secret. One day, the teenage detective Hajime accompanied Miyuki to Kanazawa to take part in a stage play rehearsal. According to the playwright Nakano, the production was based on Kanazawa's famous urban legend known as the Sorrowed Ghost. Nakano's eerie way of speaking startled Hajime, causing him to accidentally knock over a storage box and send dozens of hats spilling onto the floor. As Hajime picked them up, he realized every single one was a vintage-style hat. Seeing this, the actress Reiko suggested changing the horror theme to something a little less frightening. Her proposal immediately angered Nakano, because the story he had written perfectly matched Kanazawa's upcoming memorial festival. Reiko argued that the legend was incredibly terrifying and warned that bringing it up might invite misfortune. Her words only made Nakano even more irritated. He insisted that the legend was nothing but a myth and claimed that the cursed mummy, which Reiko's family had protected for generations, was fake as well. The mention of the cursed mummy immediately caught Hajime's attention. Later, Reiko explained that in Kanazawa, anything connected to the Sorrowed Ghost was believed to bring disaster. She also insisted that her family's cursed mummy was absolutely real. To suppress its curse, her father had spent his entire life continuously crafting ceremonial masks. Not long afterward, Hajime and the others followed Reiko to her family estate. The moment they stepped inside, Miyuki was horrified to discover that terrifying demon masks lined nearly every hallway. Reiko's younger sister Minako barely reacted. Having grown up in the mansion, she had long since gotten used to the unsettling sight. While Minako was speaking, their mother Ko heard the commotion and came out of her room. Reiko immediately hurried over to support her, making Miyuki realize that Ko appeared to be in poor health. Soon afterward, Hajime wandered around the mansion by himself. During his walk, he heard a strange noise coming from somewhere inside. Curious, he quietly opened a nearby door and peeked through the gap. Inside, an elderly man was drenched in sweat as he carefully crafted a mask, while a young man sat quietly beside him. At first, Hajime didn't think much of it, but when he looked up, he nearly jumped out of his skin. A mummified corpse was placed on the table right next to the old man. After introducing themselves, Hajime learned that the elderly craftsman was Reiko's father Suzunori, while the young man was his apprentice Inami. Afterward, Hajime asked about the legend of the Sorrowed Ghost. Inami admitted that he didn't know many details. He had only heard that the story dated back to an ancient lord of Kanazawa. According to the legend, the lord married an extraordinarily beautiful woman but was never able to have children with her. Desperate to conceive, the woman secretly offered herself as a sacrifice to a demon. Soon afterward, she gave birth to a baby boy. Unfortunately, the child was born with a mysterious illness that no physician could cure. The woman once again prayed to the demon for help. Instead of granting her wish, the demon became enraged and possessed her body. Driven mad by the possession, she killed her own son with her own hands. When she finally regained her senses, overwhelming guilt consumed her. Unable to live with what she had done, she threw herself into a well. The Lord desperately searched for her body but was never able to recover it. Years later, a massive fire engulfed Kanazawa Castle. As people drained the well to fight the flames, they finally discovered the woman's body at the bottom, but by then, it had already become a dried mummy. Yet the disasters didn't end there. Soon after the mummy was uncovered, a deadly plague swept across Kanazawa Castle. Everyone believed that the woman's lingering resentment had transformed into the Sorrowed Ghost and was bringing calamity upon the city. In an effort to suppress the curse, a military general entrusted the mummy to the Tsujiguchi family, whose members had crafted ceremonial masks for generations. The plan was to transfer the Sorrowed Ghost's power into the masks and gradually weaken its curse. From that day on, the mummy was passed down through Reiko's family from one generation to the next. Meanwhile, Nakano continued working on his script. Suddenly, he heard a strange sound behind him. He quickly turned around, but no one was there. Then, without warning, a horrifying monster suddenly appeared and brutally killed him. Not long afterward, Hajime and the others received the news and rushed to the theater. After getting a brief explanation from Okayasu, they forced the locked door open. They saw Nakano sitting with his back facing them, and Okayasu initially assumed he had simply fallen asleep. But when Yuko walked over to check on him, she realized he was already dead. Even more terrifying, the wall directly in front of Nakano had the word ghost written across it in blood. The horrifying scene instantly sent Minako into a panic, and she ran out of the room. A second later, Everyone heard her scream from outside. The group rushed out, and Minako frantically claimed that she had seen someone wearing a mask run into the woods. Hajime immediately chased after the mysterious figure, but by the time he arrived, there was no one to be found. After the murder, the police quickly arrived at the scene. Following an initial investigation, Officer Kisaragi studied the condition of the crime scene and concluded that the killer had to be someone Nakano knew well. Because of that, she believed the case wasn't particularly complicated, but Hajime had a completely different opinion. The room had been locked from the inside, and the high window couldn't be opened at all, which meant this was actually a highly sophisticated locked room murder. However, Kisaragi didn't take his deduction seriously. Instead, she simply joked that he should focus on going to school. Later, everyone gathered at a cafe to discuss the case, and Reiko once again warned them not to get too involved with the legend of the sorrowed ghost. Yuko immediately became emotional after hearing those words. She insisted that Nakano's death had nothing to do with any legend. According to her, Sayuri was the real killer, and the word ghost written on the wall was the strongest proof. But before Yuko could finish speaking, Okayasu abruptly cut her off and accused her of talking nonsense. Seeing the tension rise, Reiko suggested canceling the upcoming performance. Okayasu immediately rejected the idea. He believed that if they canceled the play now, Nakano's death would have been completely meaningless. Their conversation struck Hajime as rather strange, but he chose not to say anything. Instead, he privately approached Reiko and asked her about Sayuri. According to Reiko, around the same time last year, Sayuri had joined the theater troupe as a transfer member. She was kind-hearted, incredibly beautiful, and naturally gifted as an actress. Her performance as the sorrowed ghost amazed everyone who watched it, but her brilliance also sparked Yuko's intense jealousy. Then one day, during a mountain hiking event organized by the troupe, Sayuri accidentally lost her footing and fell off a cliff to her death. With a serious expression, Reiko revealed that it wasn't actually Nakano who had chosen the play's theme. It had been Sayuri all along. That was exactly why Reiko feared the sorrowed ghost legend so deeply. After learning this, Hajime sought out Inami. He felt Reiko's extreme reaction to the legend was highly suspicious, but Inami didn't think much of it. In fact, he seemed to understand her feelings. According to him, almost everyone in Reiko's family who became involved with the sorrowed ghost legend eventually met a terrible fate. For example, Reiko's father's first wife supposedly died after falling victim to the curse, and his current wife Ko had grown weaker and weaker ever since marrying into the family, even though doctors couldn't identify the cause of her illness. Hearing this, Hajime couldn't help but ask whether Inami believed in the legend himself. Inami replied thoughtfully that there were many things in this world beyond human understanding, but he had always remained skeptical while keeping an open mind. Afterward, Hajime headed to the theater to watch the troupe's rehearsal, but what awaited him was something he never could have imagined. As the stage lift slowly rose from below, instead of a performer, it carried Yuko's lifeless body. Even more disturbing, the word ghost had once again been written beside the corpse. Before long, Officer Kisaragi arrived with her team. After examining the scene, she concluded that the killer had murdered Yuko beneath the stage and then used the lift to bring her body up into full view. Once she finished her analysis, Kisaragi questioned everyone about their whereabouts during the incident. Okayasu confidently replied that they had all been sitting together in the audience and that no one had left alone. His statement only strengthened Kisaragi's belief. She became convinced that both murders had been committed by someone holding a grudge against the theater troupe. But Hajime disagreed once again. If the killer really knew the victims personally, then they would have waited until the victims were alone instead of committing murder during a rehearsal in front of everyone. Even so, Kisaragi ignored his reasoning and once again joked that he should worry more about his studies. Her dismissive attitude left Hajime completely speechless. The group later returned to the Tsujiguchi residence and informed Inami about the second murder. The moment Inami heard that another person had died, he suddenly lost control. He shouted that he had to destroy the cursed mummy once and for all. Grabbing a knife, he rushed straight into the room where the mummy was kept. Without hesitation, he drove the blade directly into the mummy's head. Fortunately, Hajime stopped him before he could do any further damage, but only moments after Inami left. Reiko's mother suddenly let out a terrified scream. Everyone rushed toward the sound, and was met with an unbelievable sight. One of the demon masks hanging in the room was actually bleeding. Even stranger, the blood was flowing from the exact same spot where Inami had stabbed the mummy. Faced with such an impossible scene, even Hajime found himself beginning to believe in the legend of the sorrowed ghost. That night, Hajime and Miyuki visited a local bar. While Hajime was quietly thinking over the case, he suddenly noticed the bartender pulling a bottle of liquor out from inside a hollowed-out book. That unusually creative storage method made Hajime instantly understand everything. The following day, Hajime gathered everyone together. Growing impatient, they asked if he was about to claim that the sorrowed ghost's curse had killed Nakano and Yuko. Instead of answering immediately, Hajime first invited Officer Kisaragi to join them. After a brief discussion with her, he directly accused Inami of murdering Yuko. The sudden accusation left Inami completely stunned. He couldn't understand why Hajime suspected him. Hajime calmly explained his reasoning. He admitted that when the mask suddenly began bleeding, even he couldn't explain what had happened. However, just moments earlier, Kisaragi had received the forensic report on the blood. The blood on the mask actually belonged to Yuko, which meant Inami had deliberately smeared Yuko's blood onto the mask after committing the murder. Inami immediately argued that everything Hajime said was nothing more than speculation. Hajime shook his head and replied that Inami's murder method had been nearly perfect, but his desperate attempt to destroy the cursed mummy had ultimately become the biggest flaw in his entire plan. Hajime guessed that Inami's reason for damaging the mummy was simple. He wanted everyone to connect the bleeding mask with the legend of the sorrowed ghost. That way, everyone would believe the murders were the work of a supernatural curse. But after hearing the accusation, Inami immediately began acting confused and pretending not to understand. Seeing this, Hajime directly questioned him. He asked Inami how he had managed to create the locked room murder in the first place. Yet Inami simply stared at him with a blank expression. Ironically, that reaction only made Hajime even more certain of his theory. Inami had killed Yuko for one reason above all else: to protect the person who had murdered Nakano. And the real killer of Nakano was Minako. Before Hajime could finish speaking, Inami suddenly jumped to his feet, agitated. He insisted that he alone had committed every crime, but Hajime continued his deduction without hesitation. After Minako killed Nakano, Inami returned to the study to cover for her. He locked the door from the inside and hid himself in the room. The place he chose to hide was the very storage box Hajime had accidentally knocked over earlier. At first glance, the box looked far too small for a person, but if the top and bottom sections were removed, leaving only the middle frame, it was just large enough for someone to hide inside. As long as enough identical storage boxes were stacked together, Inami could conceal himself among them without anyone noticing. The strongest proof of this was Minako's scream. The moment everyone rushed out of the study after hearing her cry, Inami was given the perfect opportunity to escape unnoticed. Even after hearing all of this, Inami stubbornly insisted that every murder had been his doing. But at last, Minako stopped him and confessed that she was the one who had killed Nakano. That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, she went to the theater and murdered him. What she never expected was that Inami had secretly followed her and witnessed the entire crime. After learning the truth, Inami began carrying out a series of actions to protect her. He even went so far as to kill Yuko inside the theater, to create an alibi for Minako. Everything Minako had done was for the sake of avenging Sayuri. The truth was that Sayuri's death years earlier had never been an accident. Nakano and the others were responsible for what happened. Sayuri had lost her mother at a very young age and had endured a difficult childhood. She had always been physically weak as well. On the day of the mountain hike, Nakano and several others played a prank by deliberately changing the trail signs. As a result, Sayuri unknowingly walked into a dead end and ultimately fell to her death. The day after Sayuri's funeral, Minako accidentally overheard a conversation between them. Only then did she discover that they were the ones responsible for Sayuri's death. What made it even more unforgivable was that none of them felt the slightest bit of guilt. Instead, they covered for one another and buried the truth. From that moment on, Minako swore that she would make every one of them pay. As she spoke, tears slowly streamed down her face, because she believed that she and Sayuri had always been the same, two lonely souls searching for a place to belong. Her biological mother had died shortly after giving birth to her. Not long afterward, she was adopted by the Tsujiguchi family. Quiet and reserved by nature, she constantly worried that she would never fit into her new home. She was terrified that her adoptive parents and her older sister would come to dislike her. So she spent years suppressing her true feelings. Sayuri was the very first friend she had ever made. She was also the first person to ever give her a gift. Sayuri had always treated her with genuine kindness. The ring she gave Minako had been purchased with money she had saved for a long time. Looking at the sobbing girl, Hajime softly told her that although he had never met Sayuri himself, He knew one thing for certain: Minako was not alone. Inami had been willing to sacrifice everything just to protect her. That alone was enough to prove how deeply he cared for her. Unable to hold back her emotions any longer, Minako finally collapsed to her knees and burst into tears.